So tell me a little bit about where you're from.
I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, but I was born in Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Anyway, so I grew up as a military kid, so I lived everywhere. I was actually born in San Antonio, but I probably only lived there for about 2 years. But I really grew up in Germany, so I lived there about 7 years. But I just claim I'm from Florida because I moved so much, and so I'm really familiar, but yeah.
I'm from the big city of Luling, Texas. Luling is a rural farming community located on Interstate 10, about 50 miles south of Austin.
Okay, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, California. So I miss it. I miss the weather. But I met my wonderful husband here, and Texas is now my home. Moved to Houston in 13, so bought our house here in Prairie View last year.
I'm from Prairie View. I was born and raised here in 2000.
When did you first come to Prairie View?
Summer of 2019, I did the summer bridge program. So,
Okay.
yeah. I was excited to be here. Before I got here, since probably sophomore year, I knew I wanted to be at PV, but it was mostly excitement, maybe a little bit nervous, but mostly excitement. It was really hard for me to adjust just because I didn't realize how much of a culture Texas had alone. So it was kind of hard for me to just being an out-of-state student and being away from my mom so often.
Me in the car, took me down to Houston, drove me out to Piney Point. Miss Irma Williams, the next morning, drove us to Prairie View, me and my mother, and they walked us through. Mr. Walter Hall walked me and my mother through the whole financial aid process, walked us through the admissions process, and that's the first time I realized we were poor. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. See, when I came here, I was so ignorant, and I didn't know how ignorant I was. They asked me, did I want to be an engineer? I didn't know what an engineer was. Never met an engineer. The only engineer I knew of drove a train through Luling.
Prairie View became home in my heart when we laid eyes on this house in August, I'd say. We had seen a million houses, and I had no connection to Prairie View whatsoever, none. So my husband's like, hey, there's this house in Prairie View, and we just drove out to see it. And right up when we got off the freeway on Sandra Bland or University, I'm like, where are we? What is this little secret, squirreled away, little area? Wasn't bustling with students, but of course the pandemic. But there was a feeling when I saw that house. We went inside. It was built in the 60s. There was a lot of history in that house. The two people who owned it, had a history with the university. And I just fell in love. Right when I saw it, that's when Prairie View became home for me, truly.
I felt excited because there was so many different people here, and I don't know, I love being around Black people, so that was exciting for me. I definitely feel like it became a home away from home. I think I felt that way probably when I first got here because everybody was so friendly and family orientated, so yeah.
Whatever happens to Prairie View A&M affects the community tremendously. And that's one of the things that my dad has preached to me ever since I was a kid, that for Prairie View to succeed, the university has to be uplifting. And not many people in the city, from the town, want that to dim their light a little bit and not lift up the students. You heard the story, they call us reckless, all that stuff. They're loud. It's just them being resilient to the new times.
Prairie View culture is diverse.
So I think the culture that I've learned at PV will influence me after I graduate. I feel like I've learned to love myself more than before I came to PV. I grew up in this pretty predominantly white area, and I was pretty insecure about myself, but now I feel like I'm stronger, and so yeah.
It reminded me of the nostalgia, the things my mom would describe, these little neighborhoods where everyone knew each other and the kids would play outside and it was always safe. Before we moved to Prairie View, I did my homework on there are these sites you can go on to see a city's crime report card, and I was sold. Prairie View had an A or A minus, where Houston has an F, LA has an F, Austin has a D. So, just when you put that in context and us having kids, I was like, oh wow, this little secret village still of a community, the remnants of what the American dream used to be, you know, so I fell in love with that. I like old school stuff, it just feels good to me, and I think he's the same way. That's what kind of brought us together, so that's what did it for me, guys. Prairie View is the picture of community, of a neighborhood that is close-knit. I'll still call this close-knit. I mean, we're not all at everyone's house every day, but we're close-knit in the sense that we recognize each other, we smile at each other, and we know we're all a part of this small little Prairie View community. And
I think connections, it'll really benefit me, especially with me going to nursing school.
Here at Prairie View, I was able to get my first scholarship with the Navy ROTC, and I had a chance to go to San Diego, flew on my first commercial airline, so you know, and then on my first ship that summer, my freshman year, we went out to Hawaii. So when I got back to Luling, you know, they said, "Where you been, Jack?" I said, "I've been to Hawaii, man." They said, "Oh man, you lying, you ain't been to Hawaii." But so I was hooked on the Navy. So Prairie View changed my life. And so I took a commission as a naval officer. And since leaving Prairie View, I've traveled all over the world on ships. And I went from ensign, which is the entry level, all the way up to the rank of captain. So my next rank would have been admiral. That's coming out of Luling, Texas. I'm from IT. So Prairie View gave me a break. And so the Navy sent me back to Prairie View to teach navigation and ship handling. And I refused to leave. And so I've been here since 1980. They brought dreams to our doorstep. And these students, like me, like y'all, are people's dreams. Y'all the ones, the folks that say, you need to be like Louetta's boy, you need to be like Sarah's girl. We the ones they point to. So that's the impact, I would say, on Prairie View, that we change lives.
I think the relationships I build here are gonna follow me everywhere. And the ones I built outside the city, same way. I wouldn't be the man I am today. I'm still becoming the man I want to be if it wasn't for the people outside, my community, and the Prairie View. And to see them both combined together so much, it's a blessing to have it right here in my backyard. For me, it's a connected organism from the first sentence. We're a connected organism. Whatever happens to them happens to us. Whatever happens to us happens to them. And the second sentence is more of a word, it's home. That's it. To me, it's home.